Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. We meet on our first topic, which is introduction to statistics. Now let us get to know what is statistics. Statistics is a one part of the branch under mathematics. Statistics is the science of data where it involves collection of data through primary or secondary process, organizing the data into a meaningful way such as into Excel, XPSS, or any form of table. Analyze the data. Present the result of the analysis in terms of table or in terms of graph. And finally, we make a conclusion or interpretation or summary of the result that we obtain. There are terms that we need to understand in statistics. So therefore, let us look what are the terms. Let's say I am interested to study on the obesity among students at UiTM Merbok. Therefore, I select randomly 300 students from Part 3 from Faculty of Computer Science. So here, my population is all the students from UiTM Merbok. And my sample is 300 students from Part 3 from Faculty of Computer Science. Once you know what is sample and what is population, you need to understand another statistical terms related to the population and sample. You need to know what is parameter and what is statistic. Parameter is a characteristic for population, numerical characteristic of population. Usually it is fixed and it's unknown. For example, percentage of voters in Kedah who think the government is doing a good job to control unemployment among fresh university graduates. As for statistic, it tells you a characteristic, numerical characteristic of the sample data such as mean, standard deviation, variance, and estimate the corresponding population parameter. In population and sample, we have an element or experimental units. This element referring to an object or people or things on which measurement is taken. You also need to know what is variable of interest. Okay, using this previous exercise or previous example, I am trying to find or identify the obesity among students at UiTM Kedah. Therefore, my variable of interest is obesity information. And these variables will involve BMI. And the BMI is obtained through calculation of height and weight. So variables is any characteristic, number or quantity of interest that can be measured or count. For example, age, sex, income, blood pressure, CGPA, and many more. Another term related to population and sample is census and survey. Census is a collection of information on every members of the population, while survey is a collection of information from a sample of population. Census is more accurate and more details because you need to obtain every single information of your element, while survey is not so accurate. Survey usually done to obtain the objective of our study. Census take a long time to complete since it involves a lot or more or thousand or million of object or people, while survey can be done in a shorter period of time. Usually census is conducted by the government, while survey is conducted by anyone who interested to do a research. And survey can be conducted more frequently compared to census, where it have some duration or time frame to be conducted. When we talk about doing research, one need to do a pilot study. Why you need to do a pilot study? Because it be your preliminary studies which it aims to improve the questionnaire that you have construct, identify the problem that occurred during survey, and helps you to predict cost, time and workforce needed to conduct the survey. And moreover, pilot study usually is conducted in a small scales, for example 20 but less than 100 people. For your information, there are two types of statistics. One is descriptive statistics, another one is inferential statistics. The main goal of descriptive statistics is to describe the nature of the data collected. Usually, descriptive statistics utilize numerical and graphical method to look for pattern in a data set and summarize the information, present it to others, and make decision from the result they obtain. You can describe the information of the data in terms of graphical or numerical. Graphically, you can use pictograph, pie chart, bar chart, histogram. And while numerical, you represent it in terms of mean, mode, median, standard deviation. An example of descriptive statistic is, for example, the percentage growth of Malaysian population, the average income of 100 employee in a company A, for example, by 28,673 per annum. In inferential statistics, you make conclusion about population based on a sample of data from the population. These types of statistics, inferential statistics, allows you to make decision or prediction about population. So what kind of inferential statistic that can we look for? For example, based on a sample survey by a lecturer at a higher learning institution, only 10% of diploma graduate further their studies in the bachelor's program abroad. So here you can see that from this information, they use a sample survey. It used sample. So that one is under inferential. As mentioned in previous slides, there are two types of data or source of data, which are primary data and secondary data. So what is primary data and what is secondary data? Primary data is where researchers collect the information by itself, or we call it as first-hand information. While secondary data is where researchers obtain the data from other sources, such as a government website, thesis, book from library, or any other websites that can provide the information to the researcher. Example of primary data is observation, experimental, and questionnaire design. Secondary data is a primary data that has been collected, presented, and published for use for other people. So there are various ways of you to obtain secondary data. For example, from thesis, book, newspaper, magazine, academic report, annual report of companies, or government's information, something like that. There are two types of variable, qualitative and quantitative. When we talk about quantitative, it's regarding quantity, a number, a value, which can be measured. There are two types of quantitative data, which are discrete and continuous. Discrete variables can take countable value. It can assume only certain value with no intermediate value. For example, the number of students in the library, number of cars sold by Proton Weekly, while continuous variable can assume any value over a certain range. We require a device to obtain continuous variable. For example, if you want to know your temperature for today, you require a thermometer. And if you want to know your current weight, required you required a measuring device. Distance, weight, height, temperature is the example of continuous variable. Qualitative data cannot assume a numerical value. However, we can categorize the information. Gender, level of education, mobile phone operator, type of occupation is the example of qualitative variable. Under these types of variable, we have scale of measurement. For qualitative data, we have nominal and ordinal data, while for quantitative, we have interval and ratio information. Nominal measurement consists of assigning items to groups or categories. Religious preferences, race, and sex are all examples of nominal scale. Ordinal scale is where we arrange the data in rank. Socioeconomic status, exam results, 5-point rating scales are examples of ordinal scale. Interval scale is similar to ordinal data. However, interval scales do not have a true 0 point. And therefore, it is hardly to make statement about how many times higher one score is than another. IQ level, temperature in degrees Celsius, and anxiety level or anxiety score are the example under interval scale. Ratio scale is similar to interval. It has the characteristic of nominal, ordinal, and interval. Plus, it has a true 0 point. For example, weight and height. For example here, if you have 0 weight, it means that things or that object does not exist. Shoe size, age, weight, height, times are the example for ratio scales.